Alrighty. I think that about does it. So, welcome back to another thrilling installment of Story Time Saturdays as we continue our reading of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert Heinlein. As you can see, I am your intrepid narrator. Um, Man, a narrator. It's like a narrating navigator. I like that. I'm going to remember that until I forget it, which will be about 50 seconds from now. So somebody remember narrator for me. It is not, in fact, a narrator or a narratorial alligator too. I suppose that's possible. I always thought of myself as more of a gavial, really. Though I am large and in charge like alligator. I had a point and I lost it. I'm Fragath. I'll be your narrator for this evening, morning, whatever. For this installment, as always. Let's see, where were we? Oh, right. Manny just got arrested because he went to Kentucky, which, as we all know, has always been the very center and heart of civilization and intelligent progressive values. Um, and gets arrested because he for polygamy. Um, because of the natural family structure or one of the functioning family structures in on the moon, and the fact that he's got multiple wives, multiple husbands in this collective family, and so he has now been arrested by Kentucky police. Thanks, Kentucky. Always so progressive there, Kentucky. Keep doing how you do. I guess, because even in a hypothetical future from a book written in 66, they were calling Kentucky on its retrograde behavior. Sorry, Kentucky people, if you're out there. Um, I know you're not all like that. I know you're not all stereotypes. Man, I'm gonna get banned. Whatever. Sorry. Sorry, Kentuckians. It is not a slight at you, it is a slight at hypothetical future Kentuckians, as imagined and envisaged in a book written in 1966. Actually, this is happening in a hypothetical future where the United States of America basically doesn't exist anymore. Because all all of the nations of the world are part of a basically a federated nations, a federation, if you will, um, which seemed to be the way the world was leaning for a while, and then wasn't anymore, uh, due to a number of reasons that we shan't be getting into here. Instead, Instead, oh good, that chapter's not very long. I should be able to get at least 2 done today. Maybe. Oh great, I'm gonna have to speak pseudo-Russian. Ugh, don't do this to me! Can I get 3 done? Is this 3rd chapter short? Not really. Sugar. I'd love to get that far, though. Alright, I'll definitely be able to get 2 chapters done. I'll try to get a 3rd done, but it's almost as long as the previous 2 chapters put together. So, I may not be able to, because lately my Saturday time, as people have noticed, has been limited, sadly. Uh, so things have not been quite as have not made the progress I would like to be making. So I'm going to hope I can get through 3 chapters today. That would be nice. I may just do 3 chapters anyway and be late to my engagement. I'd rather not be late to my engagement. I had some other salient point that I wanted to mention, but I can't remember what it was. It was probably not very important. Oh, well, there is somebody having an event nearby where I am, and it could be that you'll hear it, but probably not. They've been very quiet up until now, so unless, I don't know, someone starts shooting at people or something. Never discount anything anymore. It's not a political event, it's like a crafts fair or something. So ideally, it will not turn rowdy and violent, but in case I say, oh shit, that almost got me, or I've been shot, well, then you know why. I don't think this will happen. I would not worry about it. Okay, so without further ado, I'm probably just not going to start using the for today. I'm not going to do the very bad Russian accent because A, it's hard, and B, I have a lot to read today, and frankly, I I may have a cold and I need to give everything a rest right now on that score. Urker. Chapter 19. Took Stu all day to get case transferred to an FN court and dismissed. His lawyers asked to have it tossed out on diplomatic immunity, but FN judges did not fall into trap, merely noted that alleged offenses had taken place outside jurisdiction of lower court, except alleged inciting, concerning which they had found insufficient evidence. Aren't any FN laws covering marriage? Can't be. Just a rule about each nation required to give, quote, full faith and credence, unquote, to marriage customs of other member nations. Out of those 11 billion people, perhaps 7 billion lived where polygamy is legal, and Stu's opinion manipulators played up persecution. It gained us sympathy from people who otherwise would never have heard of us, even gained it in North America and other places where polygamy is not legal, from people who believe in live and let live. All good, because always problem was to be noticed. To most of those bee swarm billions, Luna was nothing. Our rebellion hadn't been noticed. Stu's operators had gone to much thought to plan setup to get me arrested. Was not told until weeks later, after time to cool off and see benefits. Took a stupid judge, a dishonest sheriff, and a barbaric local prejudice which I triggered with that sweet picture, for Stu admitted later that range of color in Davis family was what got judge angry enough to be foolish, even beyond native talent for nonsense. My one consolation, that Mum could not see my disgrace, turned out mistaken. Pictures, taken through bars and showing grim face, were in every Luna paper, and write-ups used nastiest Earthside stories, not larger number that deplored injustice. But should have had more faith in Mimi. She wasn't ashamed, simply wanted to go Earthside and rip some people to pieces. While it helped Earthside, greatest good was in Luna. Loonies become more unified over this silly hoo-hoo than had ever been before. They took it personally, and Adam Celine and Simon Gesture pushed it. Loonies are easygoing, except on one subject: women. Every lady felt insulted by Terran news stories. So male loonies who had ignored politics suddenly discovered I was their boy. Spin-ox. Old lags feel superior to those not transported. Later found self greeted by ex-cons with, "Hi, jailbird!" A lodge greeting. I was accepted. But saw nothing good about it then. Pushed around, treated like cattle, fingerprinted, photographed, given food we wouldn't offer hogs, exposed to endless indignity, and only that heavy field kept me from trying to kill somebody. Had I been wearing number 6 arm when grabbed, might have tried. But steadied down once I was freed. Hour later we were on way to Agra, had at last been summoned by committee. Felt good to be back in suite in Maharaja's palace, but 11-hour zone change in less than 3 did not permit rest. We went to hearing bleary-eyed and held together by drugs. Hearing was one-sided. We listened while chairman talked. Talked an hour. I'll summarize. Our preposterous claims were rejected. Lunar Authority's sacred trust could not be abandoned. Disorders on Earth's moon could not be tolerated. Moreover, recent disorders showed that Authority had been too lenient. Omission was now to be corrected by an activist program, a 5-year plan in which all phases of life in Authority's trusteeship would be overhauled. A code of laws was being drafted. Civil and criminal courts would be instituted for benefit of client employees, which meant all persons in trust area, not just consignees with uncompleted sentences. Public schools would be established, plus indoctrinal adult schools for client employees in need of same. An economic, engineering, and agricultural planning board would be created to provide fullest and most efficient use of Moon's resources and labor of client employees. An interim goal of quadrupling grain shipments in 5 years had been adopted as a figure easily obtainable once scientific planning of resources and labor was in effect. First phase would be to withdraw client employees from occupations found not to be productive and then put them to drilling a vast new system of farm tunnels in order that hydroponics would commence in them not later than March 2078. These new giant farms would be operated by Lunar Authority, scientifically, and not left to whims of private owners. It was contemplated that the system would, by end of 5-year plan, produce entire new grain quota. In meantime, client employees producing grain privately would be allowed to continue. But they would be absorbed into the new system as their less efficient methods were no longer needed. Chairman looked up from papers. In short, the lunar colonies are going to be civilized and brought into managerial coordination with the rest of civilization. Distasteful as this task has been, I feel, speaking as a citizen rather than as a chairman of this committee, I feel that we owe you thanks for bringing our attention to a situation so badly in need of correction. Was ready to burn his ears off. Client employees. What a fancy way to say slaves. But Prof said tranquilly, I find the proposed plans most interesting. Is one permitted to ask questions, purely for information? For information, yes. North American member leaned forward. But don't assume that we are going to take any backtalk from you cavemen, so mind your manners. You aren't in the clear on this, you know. Order, Chairman said. Proceed, Professor. This term, client-employee, I find intriguing. Can it be stipulated that the majority of inhabitants of Earth's major satellite are not undischarged consignees, but free individuals? Certainly, Chairman agreed blandly. All legal aspects of the new policy have been studied. With minor exceptions, some 91% of the colonists have citizenship, original or derived, in various member nations of the Federated Nations. Those who wish to return to their home countries have a right to do so. You will be pleased to learn that the authority is considering a plan under which loans for transportation can be arranged.
probably under supervision of International Red Cross and Crescent. I might add that I myself am heartily backing this plan, as it renders nonsensical any talk about slave labor." He smiled smugly.
"I see," agreed Prof. "Most humane. Has the committee, or the authority, pondered the fact that most, effectively all, I should say, considered the fact that inhabitants of Luna are physically unable to live on this planet? That they have undergone involuntary permanent exile through irreversible physiological changes, and can never again live in comfort and health in a gravitational field 6 times greater than that to which their bodies have become adjusted?"
Scoundrel pursed lips as if considering totally new idea. "Speaking again for myself, I would not be prepared to stipulate that what you say is necessarily true. It might be true of some, might not be to others. People vary widely. Your presence here proves that it is not impossible for a lunar inhabitant to return to Earth. In any case, we have no intention of forcing anyone to return. We hope that they will choose to stay, and we hope to encourage others to emigrate to the Moon. But these are individual choices under the freedoms guaranteed by the Great Charter. But as to this alleged physiological phenomenon, it is not a legal matter. If anyone deems it prudent, or thinks he would be happier to stay on the Moon, that's his privilege."
"I see. We are free. Free to remain in Luna and work, at tasks and for wages set by you, or free to return to Earth, to die."
Chairman shrugged. "You assume that we are villains. We are not. Why, if I were a young man, I would emigrate to the Moon myself. Great opportunities. In any case, I am not troubled by your distortions. History will justify us."
Was surprised at Prof. He was not fighting. Worried about him. Weeks of strain and a bad night on top. All he said was, "Honorable Chairman, I assume that shipping to Luna will soon be resumed. Can passage be arranged for my colleague and myself in the first ship? For I must admit, sir, that this gravitational weakness of which I spoke is, in our cases, very real. Our mission is completed. We need to get home."
Not a word about grain barges, nor about throwing rocks, nor even futilely of beating a cow. Prof just sounded tired. Chairman leaned forward and spoke with grim satisfaction. "Professor, that presents difficulties. To put it bluntly, you appear to be guilty of treason against the Great Charter, indeed, against all humanity, and an indictment is being considered. I doubt if anything more than a suspended sentence would be invoked against a man of your age and physical condition. However, do you think it would be prudent of us to give you passage back to the place where you committed these acts, there to stir up more mischief?"
Prof sighed. "I understand your point. Then, sir, may I be excused? I am weary."
"Certainly. Hold yourself at the disposal of this committee. The hearing stands adjourned. Colonel Davis."
"Sir?"
I was directing Wheelchair around. To get Prof out at once. Our attendants had been sent outside. "A word with you, please. In my office."
Uh,
Looked at Prof. Eyes were closed and seemed unconscious, but he moved one finger, motioning me to him.
Honorable Chairman, I'm more nurse than diplomat. Have to look after him. He's an old man. He's ill."
"The attendants will take care of him."
"Well—"
Got as close to Prof as I could from chair, leaned over him.
"Prof, are you all right?"
He barely whispered,
"See what he wants. Agree with him. But stall."
Moments later was alone with Chairman, soundproof door locked. Meant nothing, room could have a dozen ears, plus one in my left arm. He said, "A drink? Coffee?"
I answered, "No, thank you, sir. Have to watch my diet here."
"I suppose so. Are you really limited to that chair? You look healthy."
I said, "I could, if had to, get up and walk across room. Might faint, or worse. Prefer not to risk. Weigh 6 times what I should. Heart's not used to it."
"I suppose so. Colonel, I hear you've had some silly trouble in North America. I'm sorry, I truly am. Barbaric place. Always hate to have to go there. I suppose you're wondering why I wanted to see you."
"No, sir. Assume you'll tell when it suits you. Instead, was wondering why you still call me Colonel."
He gave a barking laugh. "Habit, I suppose. A lifetime of protocol. Yet it might be well for you to continue with that title. Tell me, what do you think of our 5-year plan?"
Thought it stunk. "Seems to have been carefully thought out."
"Much thought went into it. Colonel, you seem to be a sensible man. I know you are. I know not only your background, but practically every word you've spoken, almost your thoughts, ever since you set foot on Earth. You were born on the moon. Do you regard yourself as a patriot of the moon?"
"I suppose so, though tend to think of what we did just as something that had to be done."
"Between ourselves, yes. That old fool, Hobart. Colonel, that is a good plan, but lacks an executive. If you are really a patriot, or let's say a practical man with your country's best interests at heart, you might be the man to carry it out." He held up hand. "Don't be hasty. I'm not asking you to sell out, turn traitor, or any nonsense like that. This is your chance to be a real patriot, not some phony hero who gets himself killed in a lost cause. Put it this way. Do you think it is possible for the lunar colonies to hold out against all the force that the federated nations of Earth can bring to bear? You're not really a military man, I know, and I'm glad you're not. But you are a technical man, and I know that too. In your honest estimation, how many ships and bombs do you think it would take to destroy the lunar colonies?"
I answered, "1 ship, 6 bombs."
"Correct. My God, it's good to talk to a sensible man. 2 of them would have to be awfully big, perhaps specially built. A few people would stay alive for a while in a smaller warren beyond the blast areas, but 1 ship would do it in 10 minutes."
I said, "Conceded, sir, but Professor de la Paz pointed out that you don't get milk by beating a cow, and certainly can't by shooting it."
"Why do you think we've held back, done nothing for over a month? That idiot colleague of mine, I won't name him, spoke of back talk. Back talk doesn't fret me. It's just talk, and I'm interested in results. No, my dear Colonel, we won't shoot the cow. But we would, if forced to, let the cow know that it could be shot. H-missiles are expensive toys, but we could afford to expend some as warning shots, wasted on bare rock to let the cow know what could happen. But that is more force than one likes to use. It might frighten the cow and sour its milk." He gave another barking laugh. "Ha! Better to persuade old Bossy to give down willingly."
I waited.
"Don't you want to know how?" he asked.
"How?" I agreed.
"Through you. Don't say a word and let me explain."
He took me up on that high mountain and offered me kingdoms of Earth, or of Luna. Take job of Protector Pro Tem, with understanding was mine permanently if I could deliver. Convince loonies they could not win. Convince them that this new setup was to their advantage. Emphasize benefits, free schools, free hospitals, free this and that. Details later, but an everywhere of government just like on Terra. Taxes starting low and handled painlessly by automated checkoff and through kickback revenues from grain shipments. But, most important, this time authority would not send a boy to do a man's job.
2 regiments of police at once. "Those damned peace dragoons were a mistake," he said. "One we won't make again. Between ourselves, the reason it has taken us a month to work this out is that we had to convince the Peace Control Commission that a handful of men cannot police 3 million people spread through 6 largish warrens and 50 and more small ones. So you'll start with enough police. Not combat troops, but military police used to quelling civilians with a minimum of fuss. Besides that, this time they'll have female auxiliaries, the standard 10%. No more rape complaints. Well, sir, think you can swing it? Knowing it's best in the long run for your own people?"
I said I ought to study it in detail, particularly plans and quotas for 5-year plan, rather than make snap decision.
"Certainly, certainly," he agreed. "I'll give you a copy of the white paper we've made up. Take it home, study it, sleep on it. Tomorrow we'll talk again. Just give me your word as a gentleman to keep it under your hair. No secret, really, but these things are best settled before they are publicized. Speaking of publicity, you'll need help, and you'll get it. We'll go to the expense of sending up top-notch men, pay them what it's worth, have them centrifuge the way those scientists do. You know. This time, we're doing it right. That fool Hobart. He's actually dead, isn't he?"
"No, sir. Senile, however."
"Should have killed him. Here's your copy of the plan."
"Sir, speaking of old men, Professor de la Paz can't stay here. Wouldn't leave 6 months."
"That's best, isn't it?"
I tried to answer levelly. "You don't understand. He's greatly loved and respected. Best thing would be for me to convince him that you mean business with those H missiles, and that it is his patriotic duty to salvage what we can. But, either way, if I return without him, well, not only could not swing it, wouldn't live long enough to try."
Sleep on it. We'll talk tomorrow. Say 14 o'clock.
I left, and as soon as was loaded onto lorry, gave way to shakes. Just don't have high-level approach. Stu was waiting with Prof.
"Well," said Prof.
I glanced around, tapped ear. We huddled, heads over Prof's head and 2 blankets over us all. Stretcher wagon was clean, and so was my chair. I checked them each morning. But for room itself, seemed safer to whisper under blankets. Started in. Prof stopped me.
"Discuss his ancestry and habits later. The facts."
He offered me the job of warden.
"I trust you accept. Oh, shoot. I trust you accepted."
90%. I'm to study this garbage and give answer tomorrow. Stu, how fast can we execute Plan Scoot?"
"Started. We were waiting for you to return. If they let you return."
Next 50 minutes were busy. Stu produced a gaunt Hindu in a dhoti. In 30 minutes, he was a twin of Prof. Oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time again already. In 30 minutes, he was a twin of Prof, and Stu lifted Prof off wagon onto a divan. Duplicating me was easier. Our doubles were wheeled into Sweet's living room just at dusk, and dinner was brought in. Several people came and went, among them elderly Hindu woman in sari, on arm of Stuart LaJoy. A plump babu followed them. Getting Prof up steps to roof was worst. He had never worn powered walkers, had no chance to practice, had been flat on back for more than a month. But Stu's arm kept him steady. I gritted teeth and climbed those 13 terrible steps by myself. By the time I reached roof, heart was ready to burst. Was put to it not to black out. A silent little flitter craft came out of gloom right on schedule, and 10 minutes later we were in chartered ship we had used past month. 2 minutes after that we jetted for Australia. Don't know what it cost to prepare this dance and keep it ready against need, but was no hitch. Stretched out by Prof and caught breath, then said, "How you feel, Prof?"
"Okay. A bit tired. Frustrated." Yada. Frustrated. Over not seeing the Taj Mahal, I mean. I never had opportunity as a young man, and here I've been within a kilometre of it twice, once for several days, now for another day, and still I haven't seen it, and never shall. Just the tomb, and Helen of Troy was just a woman. Sleep, lad. We landed in Chinese half of Australia, place called Darwin, and were carried straight into a ship, placed in acceleration couches and dosed. Prof was already out, and I was beginning to feel dopey when Stu came in, grinned, and strapped down by us. I looked at him. You too? Who's minding shop? The same people who've been doing the real work all along. It's a good setup and doesn't need me any longer. Manny, old copper, I don't want to be marooned a long way from home. Luna, I mean, in case you have doubts. This looks like the last train from Shanghai. What's Shanghai got to do with? Forget I mentioned it. Manny, I'm flat broke, concave. I'm flat broke, concave. I owe money in all directions. Debts that will be paid only if certain stocks move the way Adam Celine convinced me they would move shortly after this point in history. And I'm wanted, or will be, for offenses against the public peace and dignity. Put it this way, I'm saving them the trouble of transporting me. Do you think I can learn to be a drill man at my age? Was feeling foggy, drug taking hold. Stu, in Luna you aren't old. Barely started. Anyway, eat our table forever. Mimi likes you. Thanks, Copper. I might. Warning light. Deep breath. Suddenly was kicked by 10G. Oy. Yo, Kazong, welcome back. Nice to see people are tuning in. It makes me feel so special. All right, so I have some pseudo-Russian to look forward to in the next chapter, which will be fun. Because it's not real Russian, it's like phoneticized, so I have to like think 3 times on it whenever I'm looking at it. I'm like, oh wait. Which is part of the point. They're not all Russian, but like that's part of their heritage. Okay. Get a little more water in me here. Okay. Proceed as scheduled. Or whatever. Chapter 20. Our craft was ground-to-orbit ferry type, used for manned satellites, for supplying FN ships in patrol orbit, and for passengers to and from pleasure and gambling satellites. She was carrying 3 passengers instead of 40, no cargo except 3 pea suits and a brass cannon. Yes, silly toy was along. Pea suits and Prof's Bang Bang were in Australia a week before we were. And good ship Lark had been stripped. Total crew was skipper and a cyborg pilot. She was heavily overfueled. We made, was told, normal approach on Elysium satellite, then suddenly scooted from orbital speed to escape speed, a change even more violent than liftoff. This was scanned by FN Skytrack. We were commanded to stop and explain. I got this second hand from Stu, self still recovering and enjoying luxury of no G with one strap to anchor. Prof was still out. So they want to know who we are and what we think we're doing, Stu told me. We told them we were Chinese Registry Skywagon Opening Lotus, bound on an errand of mercy, to wit, rescuing those scientists marooned on the moon, and gave our identification as Opening Lotus. How about transponder? Manny, if I got what I paid for, our transponder identified us as the Lark up to 10 minutes ago, and now has ID'd us as the Lotus. Soon we will know. Just one ship is in position to get a missile off, and it must blast us in. He stopped to look. It must blast us in, he stopped to look, another 27 minutes, according to the wired-up gentleman booting this bucket, or its chances of getting us are poor to zero. So, if it worries you, if you have prayers to say, or messages to send, or whatever it is one does at such times, now is the time. Think we ought to rouse Prof? Oh, let him sleep. Can you think of a better way to make the jump than from peaceful sleep instantaneously into a cloud of radiant gas? Unless you know that he has religious necessities to attend to. He never struck me as a religious man, orthodoctrinally. Oh my God, orthodoctrinally speaking. I almost got it right first try, I swear. I was so close, and then I was like, wait, no. He's not, but if you have such duties, don't let me keep you. Thank you. I took care of what seemed necessary before we left ground. How about yourself, Manny? I'm not much of a padre, but I'll do my best if I can help. Any sins on your mind, old cobber? If you need to confess, I know quite a little about sin. Told him my needs did not run that way. Then did recall sins, some I cherished, and gave him a version more or less true. That reminded him of some of his own, which reminded me. Zero time came and went before we ran out of sins. Stu LaJoy is a good person to spend last minutes with, even if they don't turn out to be the last. I just added multiple participles there. Even if don't turn out to be last. Oy. We had 2 days with naught to do but undergo drastic routines to keep us from carrying umpteen plagues to Luna. But didn't mind shaking from induced chills and burning with fever. Freefall was such a relief and was so happy to be going home. Or almost happy. Prof asked me what was troubling me. Nothing, I said. Can't wait to be home. But, truth is, ashamed to show face after we've failed. Prof, what did we do wrong? Failed, my boy? Don't see what else can call it. Asked to be recognized. Not what we got. Manuel, I owe you an apology. You will recall Adam Celine's projection of our chances just before we left home? Stu was not in earshot, but Mike was word we never used. Was always Adam Celine for security. Certainly do. 1 in 53. Then we reached Earthside, dropped to reeking 1 in 100. What you guess it is now? 1 in 1,000? I've had new projections every few days, which is why I owe you an apology. The last, received just before we left, included the then untested assumption that we would escape, get clear of Terra, and home safely. Or that at least one of us three would make it, which is why Comrade Stu was summoned home, he having a Terran's tolerance of high acceleration. 8 projections, in fact, ranging from 3 of us dead through various combinations up to 3 surviving. Would you care to stake a few dollars on what that last projection is, setting a bracket and naming your own odds? I'll give a hint. You are far too pessimistic. Uh, no, damn it, just tell. The odds against us are now only 17 to 1, and they've been shortening all month, which I couldn't tell you. Was amazed, delighted, overjoyed, hurt. What you mean, couldn't tell me? Look, Prof, if not trusted, deal me out and put Stu in executive cell. Please, son, that's where he will go if anything happens to any of us. You, me, or dear Wyoming. I could not tell you Earthside, and can tell you now, not because you aren't trusted, but because you are no actor. You could carry out your role more effectively if you believed that our purpose was to achieve recognition of independence. Now he tells. Manuel, Manuel, we had to fight hard every instant and lose. So, am big enough boy to be told? Please, Manuel, Keeping you temporarily in the dark greatly enhanced our chances. You can check this with Adam. May I add that Stuart accepted his summons to Luna blithely without asking why? Comrade, that committee was too small, its chairman too intelligent. There was always the hazard that they might offer an acceptable compromise. That first day there was grave danger of it. Had we been able to force our case before the Grand Assembly, there would have been no danger of intelligent action. But we were balked. The best I could do was to antagonize the committee, even stooping to personal insult to make certain of at least one holdout against common sense.
Guess I never will understand high-level approach.
Possibly not, but your talents and mine complement each other. Manuel, you wish to see Luna free.
You know I do.
You also know that Terra can defeat us.
Sure, no projection ever gave anything close to even money. So don't see why you set out to antagonize.
Please. Since they can inflict their will on us, our only chance lies in weakening their will. That was why we had to go to Terra, to be divisive, to create many opinions. The shrewdest of the great generals in China's history once said that perfection in war lay in so sapping the opponent's will that he surrenders without fighting. In that maxim lies both our ultimate purpose and our most pressing danger. Suppose, as seemed possible that first day, we had been offered an inviting compromise. A governor in place of a warden, possibly from our own number. Local autonomy. A delegate in the Grand Assembly. A higher price for grain at the catapult head, plus a bonus for increased shipments. A disavowal of Hobart's policies combined with an expression of regret over the rape and the killings with handsome cash settlements to the victim survivors. Would it have been accepted? Back home?
They did not offer that.
The chairman was ready to offer something like it in that first afternoon, and at that time he had his committee in hand. He offered us an asking price close enough to permit such a dicker. Assume that we reached in substance what I outlined. Would it have been acceptable at home?
Uh, Maybe.
More than a maybe by the bleak projection made just before we left home. It was the thing to be avoided at any cost. A settlement which would quiet things down, destroy our will to resist, without changing any essential in the longer range prediction of disaster. So I switched the subject and squelched possibility by being difficult about irrelevancies and politely offensive. Manuel, you and I know, and Adam knows, that there must be an end to food shipments. Nothing less will save Luna from disaster. But can you imagine a wheat farmer fighting to end those shipments?
No. Wonder if can pick up news from home on how they're taking stoppage.
There won't be any. Here is how Adam has timed it, Manuel. No announcement is to be made on either planet until after we get home. We are still buying wheat. Barges are still arriving at Bombay.
You told them shipments would stop at once.
That was a threat, not a moral commitment. A few more loads won't matter, and we need time. We don't have everyone on our side. We only have a minority. There is a majority who don't care either way, but can be swayed temporarily. We have other another sorry. We have another minority against us, especially grain farmers whose interest is never politics but the price of wheat. They are grumbling but accepting scrip, hoping it will be worth face value later. But the instant we announce that shipments have stopped, they will be actively against us. Adam plans to have the majority committed to us at the time the announcement is made.
How long? 1 year? 2?
2 days, 3 days, perhaps 4. Carefully edited excerpts from that 5-year plan, excerpts from the recordings you've made, especially that yellow dog offer, exploitation of your arrest in Kentucky.
Hey, I'd rather forget that.
Prof smiled and cocked an eyebrow.
Uh,
I said uncomfortably.
Okay, if it will help.
It will help more than any statistics about natural resources. Wired up ex-human piloting us went in as one maneuver without... I think I misread that. Wired up ex-human... Yes, okay, good. Piloting us went in as one maneuver without bothering to orbit and gave us even heavier beating. Ship was light and lively. But change in motion is under 2.5 kilometers, was over in 19 seconds, and we were down at Johnson City. I took it right, just a terrible constriction in the chest and a feeling as if Giant were squeezing heart. Then was over, and I was gasping back to normal, and glad to be proper weight. But did almost kill poor old Prof. Mike told me later that pilot refused to surrender control. Mike would have brought ship down in a low-G, no-break-'em egg, knowing Prof was aboard. But perhaps that cyborg knew what he was doing. A low-G landing wastes mass, and Lotus Lark grounded almost dry. None of which we cared about, as looked as if that garrison landing had wasted Prof. Stu saw it while I was still gasping, then we were both at him. Heart stimulant, manual respiration, massage. At last he fluttered eyelids, looked at us, smiled. "Home," he whispered. We made him rest 20 minutes before we let him suit up to leave ship. Had been as near dead as can be, and not here angels. Skipper was filling tanks, anxious to get rid of us and take on passengers. That Dutchman never spoke to us whole trip. Think he regretted letting money talk him into a trip that could ruin or kill him. By then, Wyo was inside ship, pea-suited to come meet us. Don't think Stu had ever seen her in a pea-suit, and certainly he had never seen her as a blonde. Did not recognize. I was hugging her in spite of pea-suit. He was standing by, waiting to be introduced. Then strange man in pea-suit hugged him. He was surprised. Heard Wyo's muffled voice. "Oh, heavens! Manny, my helmet!" I unclamped it, lifted off. She shook curls and grinned. "Stu, aren't you glad to see me? Don't you know me?" Here we go. A grin spread over his face, slowly as dawn across Maria, sorry.
Здравствуйте, госпожа. I'm most happy to see you.
Госпожа, indeed. I'm Wyo to you, dear, always. Didn't Manny tell you I'd gone back to blonde?
Yes, he did, but knowing it and seeing it are not the same.
You'll get used to it. She stopped to bend over Prof, kiss him, giggle at him, then straightened up and gave me a no-helmet welcome home that left us both with tears, despite pesky suit. Then turned again to Stu, started to kiss him. He held back a little. She stopped. "Stu, am I going to have to put on brown makeup to welcome you?" Stu glanced at me, then kissed her. Wyo put in as much time and thought as she had to welcoming me. Was later I figured out his odd behavior. Stu, despite commitment, was still not a loony. And in meantime, Wyo had married. What's that got to do with it? Well, Earthside it makes a difference, and Stu did not know deep down in bones that a loony lady is own mistress. Poor chum thought I might take offense. We got Prof into suit, ourselves same, and left, me with cannon under arm. Once underground and locked through, we unsuited, and I was flattered to see that Wyo was wearing crushed under pea-suit that red dress I bought her ages ago. She brushed it, and the skirt flared out. Immigration room was empty save for about 40 men lined up along wall like new transportees. Were wearing pea-suits and carrying helmets. Terrans going home, stranded tourists, and some scientists. Their pea suits would not go, would be unloaded before lift. I looked at them and thought about Cyborg Pilot. When Lark had been stripped, all but 3 couches had been removed. These people were going to take acceleration lying on floor plates. If Skipper was not careful, he was going to have mashed Terrans au blute. Mentioned to Stu. "Forget it," he said. "Captain Lures has foam pads aboard. He won't let them be hurt. There is life insurance." All right. How long is this chapter? Rassum Frassum. There we go. If you don't practice your sound effects, you'll never get them right on command. Oi, 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 oi. I had intended. Earth, earth. Okay, this chapter is almost as long as the last 2 chapters put together. Because of course it is. Oy. Okay. I'm gonna hope that I have time. That I can do both my actual obligations and this in the same period. Oy. Okay. Chapter 21. My family, all 30-odd from grandpa to babies, was waiting beyond next lock, on level below, and we got cried on and slobbered on and hugged, and this time Stu did not hold back. Little Hazel made ceremony of kissing us. She had liberty caps, set one on each, then kissed us. And at that signal whole family put on liberty caps, and I got sudden tears. Perhaps is what patriotism feels like, choked up and so happy it hurts. Or maybe it was just being with my beloveds again.
Where's Slim? I asked Hazel. Wasn't he invited?
Couldn't come. He's junior marshal of your reception.
Reception? This is all we want.
You'll see.
Did. Good thing family came out to meet us. That and ride to El City, filled a capsule, were all I saw of them for some time. Tube Station West was a howling mob, all in liberty caps. We 3 were carried on shoulders, all way to Old Dome, surrounded by a Stilyagi bodyguard. Elbows locked to force through cheering, singing crowds. Boys were wearing red caps and white shirts, and their girls wore white jumpers and red shorts of the color of caps. At station, and again when they put us down in Old Dome, I got kissed by femmes I had never seen before or since. Remember hoping that measures we had taken in lieu of quarantine were effective, or half of El City would be down with colds or worse. Apparently we were clean. There was no epidemic. But I remember time was quite small when measles got loose and thousands died. Worried about Prof, too. Reception was too rough for a man good as dead an hour earlier. But he not only enjoyed it, he made a wonderful speech in Old Dome. One short on logic, loaded with ringing phrases. Love was in it, and home, and Luna, and comrades and neighbors, and even shoulder to shoulder, and all sounded good. They had erected a platform under a big news video on South Face. Adam Celine greeted us from video screen, and now Prof's face and voice were projected from it, much magnified, over his head. Did not have to shout. But did have to pause after every sentence. Crowd roars drowned out even bull voice from screen. And no doubt pauses helped, as rest. But Prof no longer seemed old, tired, ill. Being back inside the rock seemed to be the tonic he needed. And me, too. Was wonderful to be right weight, feel strong, breathe pure, replenished air of own city. No mean city. Impossible to get all of L City inside Old Dome, but looked as if they tried. I estimated an area 10 meters square, tried to count heads, got over 200, not half through, then gave up. Lunatic placed crowd at 30,000. Seems impossible. Prof's words reached more uh, Prof's words reached more nearly 3 million. Video carried scene to those who could not crowd into Old Dome. Cable and relay flashed it across lonely Maria, because they're the seas on the moon. They're like craters. They're splotches on the moon. We call them seas. They're not seas. They're not oceans because there might as well not be any water on the moon. There may actually be some at the poles and possibly underground, but we don't know that for sure. Um, setting that aside, let's go back to where I was. Relay flashed it across lonely Maria to all Warrens. He grabbed chance to tell of slave future authority planned for them. Waved that white paper. Here it is, he cried. Your fetters, your leg irons. Will you wear them? No! They say you must. They say they will H-bomb. Then survivors will surrender and put on these chains. Will you? No, never! Never, agreed Prof. They threaten to send troops, more and more troops, to rape and murder. We shall fight them. Duh! We shall fight them on the surface. We shall fight them in the tubes. We shall fight them in the corridors. If die we must, we shall die free. Yes! Yeah, duh! Tell 'em! Tell 'em! And if we die, let history write. This was Luna's finest hour. Give us liberty, or give us death. Some of that sounded familiar, but his words came out fresh and new. I joined in the roars. Look, I knew we couldn't whip Terra. I'm tech by trade, and know that an H-missile doesn't care how brave you are, but was ready, too. If they wanted a fight, let's have it. Prof let them roar, then led them in Battle Hymn of the Republic, Simon's version. Adam appeared on screen again, took over leading it, and sang with them, and we tried to slip away, off back of platform, with help of Stilyagi, led by Slim. But women didn't want to let us go, and lads aren't at their best in trying to stop ladies. They broke through. Was 2200 before we four, Wyo, Prof, Stu, Self, were locked in room L of Raffles, where Adam Mike joined us by video. I was starved by then, all were, so I ordered dinner, and Prof insisted that we eat before reviewing plans. Then we got down to business. Adam started by asking me to read aloud the white paper, for his benefit and for Comrade Wyoming. But first, Comrade Manuel, if you have the recordings you made Earthside, could you transmit them by phone at high speed to my office? I'll have them transcribed for study. All I have so far are the coded summaries Comrade Stewart sent up. I did so, knowing Mike would study them at once. Phrasing was part of Adam Selene myth, and decided to talk to Prof about letting Stu in on facts. If Stu was to be in executive cell, pretending was too clumsy. Feeding recordings into Mike at overspeed took 5 minutes, reading aloud another 30. That done, Adam said, Professor, the reception was more successful than I had counted on, due to your speech. I think we should push the embargo through Congress at once. I can send out a call tonight for a session at noon tomorrow. Comments? I said, "Look, those yammerheads will kick it around for weeks. If you must put it up to them, can't see why, do as you did with Declaration. Start late, jam it through after midnight using own people." Adam said, "Sorry, Manuel, I'm getting caught up on events Earthside, and you have catching up to do here. It's no longer the same group. Comrade Wyoming?"
Penny dear, it's an elected Congress now. They must pass it. They must pass it. Congress is what government we have.
I said slowly, "You held election and turned things over to them? Everything? Then what are we doing?" Looked at Prof, expecting explosion. My objections would not be on his grounds, but couldn't see any use in swapping one talk for another. At least first group had been so loose we could pack it. This new group would be glued to seats. Prof was undisturbed, fitted fingertips together, and looked relaxed. "Manuel, I don't think the situation is as bad as you seem to feel that it is. In each age it is necessary to adapt to the popular mythology. At one time kings were anointed by deity. So the problem was to see to it that deity anointed the right candidate. In this age, the myth is the will of the people, but the problem changes only superficially. Comrade Adam and I have had long discussions about how to determine the will of the people. I venture to suggest that this solution is one we can work with." Well, okay, but why weren't we told? Stu, did you know?
No, Manny, there's no reason to tell me.
He shrugged. "I'm a monarchist. I wouldn't have been interested. But I did go along with Prof that in this day and age elections are a necessary ritual."
Prof said, "Manuel, it wasn't necessary to tell us till we got back. You and I had other work to do. Comrade Adam and dear Comrade Wyoming handled it in our absence. So let's find out what they did before we judge what they've done."
Sorry. Well, Wyo?
Manny, we didn't leave everything to chance. Adam and I decided that a Congress of 300 would be about right. Then we spent hours going over the party lists, plus prominent people not in the party. At last we had a list of candidates, a list that included some from ad hoc Congress. Not all were yammerheads. We included as many as we could. Then Adam phoned each one and asked him, or her, if he would serve, binding him to secrecy in the meantime. Some we had to replace. When we were ready, Adam spoke on video, announced that it was time to carry out the party's pledge of free elections, set a date, said that everybody over 16 could vote, and that all anyone had to do to be a candidate was to get 100 chops on a nominating petition and post it in Old Dome, or the public notice place for his warren. Oh yes, 30 temporary election districts, 10 congressmen from each district. That let all but the smallest warrens be at least one district.
So you had it lined up and party ticket went through?
Oh no, dear, there wasn't any party ticket, officially. But we were ready with our candidates, and I must say my Stilyagi did a smart job getting chops on nominations. Our optings were posted the first day. Many other people posted. There were over 2,000 candidates. But there was only 10 days from announcement to election, and we knew what we wanted, whereas the opposition was split up. It wasn't necessary for Adam to come out publicly and endorse candidates. It worked out. You won by several thousand votes, dear, while your nearest rival got less than 1,000.
I won?
You won, I won, Professor won, Comrade Clayton won, and just about everybody we thought should be in the Congress. It wasn't hard, although Adam never endorsed anyone. I didn't hesitate to let our comrades know who was favored. Simon poked his finger in, too. And we do have good connections with newspapers. I wish you had been here election night watching the results. Exciting.
How did you go about nose counting? Never known how election works. Write names on piece of paper?
Oh no, we used a better system. Because, after all, some of our best people can't write. We used banks for voting places, with bank clerics identifying customers and customers identifying members of their families and neighbors who don't have bank accounts. and people voted orally, and the clerks punching the votes into the bank's computers with the voter watching, and results were all tallied at once in Luna City Clearinghouse. We voted everybody in less than 3 hours, and results were printed out just minutes after voting stopped.
Voter suppression's antithesis.
Suddenly a light came on in my skull, and I decided to question Wyo privately. No, not Wyo. Mike. Get past his Adam Celine dignity and hammer truth out of his neurosisters. Recalled a check $10 million too large and wondered how many had voted for me. 7,000? 700? Or just my family and friends? But no longer worried about new Congress. Prof had not slipped them a cold deck, but one that was frozen solid. Then ducked Earthside while crime was committed. No use asking Wyo. She didn't even need to know what Mike had done, and could do her part better if did not suspect. Nor would anybody suspect. If was one thing all people took for granted, was conviction that if you feed honest figures into a computer, honest figures come out. Never doubted it myself till I met a computer with sense of humor. Changed mind about suggesting that Stu be let in on Mike's self-awareness. 3 was too many. Or perhaps 3. I started to say, and changed to,
My word. Sounds efficient. How big did we win?
Adam answered without expression.
86% of our candidates were successful, approximately what I had expected.
Approximately my left arm. Exactly what we expected, Mike old ironmongery. Oh, geez, that sentence does not sound intelligent, but it works, I swear. Exactly what expected, Mike old ironmongery. So ironmongery being basically a collection of metalwork, so he's calling Mike a pile of scrap.
Withdraw objection to a noon session. I'll be there.
It seems to me, said Stu,
Assuming that the embargo starts at once, we will need something to maintain the enthusiasm we witnessed tonight, or there will be a long, quiet period of increasing economic depression. From the embargo, I mean, and growing disillusionment. Adam, you first impressed me through your ability to make shrewd guesses as to future events. Do my misgivings make sense?
They do. Well? Adam looked at us in turn. It was almost impossible to believe that this was a false image, and Mike was simply placing us through binaural receptors.
Comrades, it must be turned into open war as quickly as possible.
Nobody said anything. One thing to talk about war, another to face up to it. At last I sighed and said,
When do we start throwing rocks?
We do not start, Adam answered.
They must throw the first one. How do we antagonize them into doing so? I will reserve my thoughts to the last. Comrade Manuel? Don't look at me. Way I feel would start with a nice big rock smack on Agra. A bloke there who is a waste of space. But is not what you are after.
No, it is not, Adam answered seriously.
You would not only anger the entire Hindu nation, a people intensely opposed to the destruction of life, but you would also anger and shock people throughout Earth by destroying the Taj Mahal.
Including me, said Prof. Don't talk dirty, Manuel.
Look, I said, I didn't say to do it. Anyhow, could Miss Taj?
Manuel, said Prof. As Adam pointed out, our strategy must be to antagonize them into striking the first blow. The classic Pearl Harbor maneuver of game theory, a great advantage in Weltpolitik. The question is how. Adam, I suggest that what is needed is to plant the idea that we are weak and divided, and that all it takes is a show of force to bring us back into line. Stu, your people Earthside should be useful. Suppose the Congress repudiated myself and Manuel. The effect? Oh, no, said Wyo. Oh, yes, dear Wyo. Not necessary to do it, but simply to put it over news channels to Earth. Perhaps still better to put it out over a clandestine beam, attributed to the Terran scientists still with us, while our official channels display the classic stigmata of tight censorship. Adam?
I'm noting it as a tactic which probably will be included in the strategy, but it will not be sufficient alone. We must be bombed.
Adam, said Wyo, why do you say so? Even if Luna City can stand up under their biggest bombs, something I hope never to find out, we know that Luna can't win an all-out war. You've said so many times. Isn't there some way to work it so that they will just plain leave us alone?
Adam pulled at Adam pulled at right cheek, and I thought, Mike, if you don't knock off play acting, you'll have me believing in you myself. Was annoyed at him, and looked forward to a talk, one in which I would not have to defer to Chairman Celine. Comrade Wyoming, he said soberly, it's a matter of game theory in a complex non-zero-sum game. We have certain resources, or pieces in the game, and many possible moves. Our opponents have much larger resources and a far larger spectrum of responses. Our problem is to manipulate the game so that our strength is utilized toward an optimax solution while inducing them to waste their superior strength and to refrain from using it at maximum. Timing is of the essence, and a gambit is necessary to start a chain of events favorable to our strategy. I realize this is not clear. I could put the factors through a computer and show you, or you can accept the conclusion. Or you can use your own judgment.
He was reminding Wyo, under Stu's nose, that he was not Adam Celine, but Mike, our dinkum-thinkum who could handle so complex a problem because he was a computer, and smartest one anywhere. Wyo backtracked. No, no, she said. I wouldn't understand the maths. Okay, it has to be done. How do we do it?
Was 400 before we had a plan that suited Prof and Stu as well as Adam, or took that long for Mike to sell his plan while appearing to pull ideas out of the rest of us? Or was it Prof's plan with Adam Celine as salesman? In any case, we had a plan and a calendar, one that grew out of master strategy of Tuesday 14, May 2075, and varied from it only to match events as they actually had occurred. In essence, it called for us to behave as nastily as possible while strengthening impression that we would be awfully easy to spank. Was at Community Hall at noon, after too little sleep, and found I could have slept 2 hours longer. Congressman from Hong Kong could not make it that early despite tube all way. Wyo did not bang gavel until 14:30. Yes, my bride wife was chairman pro tem in a body not yet organized. Parliamentary rulings seemed to come naturally to her, and she was not a bad choice. A mob of loonies behaves better when a lady bangs a gavel. Not going to detail what new Congress did and said that session, and later, minutes are available. I showed up only when necessary and never bothered to learn talk rules. Seemed to be equal parts common politeness and ways in which chairman could invoke magic to do it his, or her, way. No sooner had Wyo banged them into order, but a cobber jumped up and said, Gaspasa Chairman, move we suspend rules and hear from Comrade Professor de la Paz, which brought a whoop of approval. Wyo banged again. Motion is out of order, and member from Lower Churchill will be seated. This House recessed without adjourning, and Chairman of Committee on Permanent Organization, Resolutions, and Government Structure still has the floor. Turned out to be a Wolfgang Korsakov, member from Tycho Under, and a member of Prof Cell and our #1 finagler of Luno Hoko, and he not only had floor, he had it all day, yielding time as he saw fit, i.e. picking out whom he wanted to speak rather than letting just anyone talk. But nobody was too irked. This mob seemed satisfied with leadership. We're noisy, but not unruly. By dinner time, Luna had a government to replace co-opted provisional government, i.e., dummy government we adopted ourselves, which sent Prof and me to Earth. Congress confirmed all acts of provisional government, thus putting face on what we had done, thanked outgoing government. Sorry about that. Sneezes. I hope I didn't do that into the mic. I tried to hit the button quick enough. Where the hell was I?
Oh, that's just typical. Where's you bleeding sentence structure? I can't even see you hitting the mass of words.
I.e., dummy government we adopted ourselves, which sent Prof and me to Earth. Congress confirmed all acts of provisional government, thus putting face on what we had done, thanked outgoing government for services, and instructed Wolfgang's committee to continue work on permanent government structure. Prof was elected President of Congress and ex officio Prime Minister of interim government until we acquired a constitution. He protested age and health, then said would serve if could have certain things to help him. Too old and too exhausted from trip Earthside to have responsibility of presiding, except on occasions of state. So he wanted Congress to elect a speaker and speaker pro tem. And besides that, he felt that Congress should augment its numbers by not more than 10% by itself electing members at large, so that Prime Minister, whoever he might be, could opt cabinet members or ministers of state who might now be members of Congress, especially ministers without portfolio to take load off his shoulders. Oh yeah, this is fun and really not dry at all. No siree, Bob. This is not tedious minutia. No, no way. Oh God, how many more pages of this do I have to do? Jesus God. Ugh. Only two. We'll be fine. It's great though, because like half the book is just like really believable human speech and ideas, and then like the other half is here's how you do this. Here's a blueprint using legalese, and I'm just like, please no. Please no. It's fine to read it. It is not fine to read it out loud. Ugh. They balked. Most were proud of being congressmen and already jealous of status. But Prof just sat looking tired and waited, and somebody pointed out that it still left control in hands of Congress. So they gave him what he asked for. Then somebody squeezed in a speech by making it a question to chair. Everybody knew, he said, that Adam Saleen had refrained from standing for Congress on grounds that chairman of emergency committee should not take advantage of position to elbow way into new government. But could Honorable Chairlady tell member whether there was any reason not to elect Adam Saleen a member at large? As gesture of appreciation for great services? To let all Luna, yes, and all those earthworms, especially ex-lunar ex-authority, know that we are not repudiating Adam Saleen. On contrary, he was our beloved elder statesman, and was not president simply because he chose to be. And was not president simply because he chose not to be. There we go. Negatives matter. More whoops that went on and on. You can find in minutes who made that speech, but one gets you 10. Prof wrote it and Wyo planted it. Here is how it wound up over course of days. Prime Minister and Secretary of State of Foreign Affairs, Professor Bernardo de la Paz. Speaker, Finn Nielsen. Speaker pro tem, Wyoming Davis. Undersecretary of State for Foreign Affairs and Minister of Defense, General O'Kelly Davis. Minister of Information, Terence Sheehan. Sheeny turned Pravda over to managing editor to work with Adam and Stu. Special Minister without portfolio in Ministry of Information, Stuart Rene LaJoy. Congressman at Large. Secretary of State for Economics and Finance, and custodian of enemy property, Wolfgang Korsakov. Minister of Interior Affairs and Safety, Comrade Clayton Watanabe. Minister without portfolio and special advisor to Prime Minister, Adam Saleen. plus a dozen ministers and ministers without portfolio from warrens other than Luna City. See where that left things? Brush away the fancy titles, and B-Cell was still running things as advised by Mike, backed by a Congress in which we could not lose a test vote, but did lose others we did not want to win, or did not care about. But at time could not see sense in all that talk. During evening session, Prof reported on trip, and then yielded to me, Committee Chairman Korsakov consenting, so that I could report what 5-year plan meant, and how authority had tried to bribe me. I'll never make a speaker, but had time during dinner break to swat speech Mike had written. He had slanted it so nastily that I got angry all over again, and was angry when I spoke and managed to make it catching. Congress was ready to riot by the time I sat down. Prof stepped forward, thin and pale, and said quietly, "Comrade members, what shall we do? I suggest, Chairman Korsakov consenting, that we discuss informally how to treat this latest insolence to our nation." One member from Novilen wanted to declare war, and they would have done so right then if Prof had not pointed out that they were still hearing committee reports. More talk, all bitter. At last, Comrade Member Chang Jones spoke. "Fellow Congressman, sorry, Господин Chairman Korsakov, I'm a rice and wheat farmer. Mean I used to be, because back in May I got a bank loan, and Sons and I are converting to variety farming. We're broke. Had to borrow tube fare to get here, but family is eating, and some day we might pull square with bank. At least I'm no longer raising grain. But others are. Catapult has never reduced headway by one barge whole time we've been free. We're still shipping, hoping their checks will be worth something someday. But now we know. They've told us what they mean to do with us. To us. I say the only way to make those scoundrels know we mean business is to stop shipments right now. Not another ton, not a kilo, until they come here and dicker honestly for honest price." Around midnight they passed embargo, then adjourned subject to call. Standing committees to continue. Wyo and I went home and got reacquainted with my family. Was nothing to do. Mike Adam and Stu had been Mike Adam, there's a hyphen there. It's the same name because it's Mike and Adam Celine. And Stu had been working on how to hit them with it Earthside, and Mike had shut Catapult down. Technical difficulties with ballistic computer. 24 hours earlier. Last barge in trajectory would be taken by Puna ground control in slightly over 1 day, and Earth would be told, nastily, that was last they would ever get. Alrighty. And with that, I do actually have to run. It has been a pleasure. I do these every week. We are, God, we're pretty close to being done, actually. That was what? How many pages did I just do there? It wasn't a ton of pages, but it was a number. Obviously, it was a number of pages. 211 to 234, so like 20 pages. Yeah, call it 20 pages. Which is a lot less than I'd like to be doing. Oh yeah. Okay, probably like 3 more weeks, and I'll have this done, and I can start reading other books. Won't that be nice? People will get to hear other exciting things. I think I'm pretty confident that I'm going to wind up doing the Freeze Frame Revolution by Peter Watts. It keeps in with a revolutionary theme. It's not intentional. It's just a good book, and it's pretty short. So I do this every week. This being Storytime Saturdays, where I read short stories or indeed entire novels aloud, like this one, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress by Robert A. Heinlein. I do other streams throughout the week. I have a Mecha Mondays stream where I do something giant robot related or mecha adjacent. I also have a Warframe Wednesdays stream where I do something Warframe related for a couple hours. Kazong, I missed you back on Wednesday, but schedules being schedules. I'll just do it again. I don't mind doing it again. It'll be fun. Um, Covering Mirage. Of course, this coming Wednesday I'll also have I think I'll have both because I've done massive grinding in the background. Uh, both of the what are they called? Necromechs built. So we'll see. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Read to you next week again, and hopefully see people Monday and Wednesday as well. Thanks for tuning in, folks. Hope you enjoyed. If you didn't enjoy, I'm sorry. If you did enjoy, great. I'm happy. Um, Please leave some kind of feedback anywhere. I don't check social media. Sorry. I don't know how you could contact me. I guess you can like ask around. If you post comments on the YouTube videos, I'd probably see them there if I check them for once. Um, I really, it is kind of a huge disadvantage not doing the social media thing. It makes it real hard to get feedback. So I apologize. I'll make that a goal for this coming year. That'll be a New Year's resolution. Do find some way to engage the viewing population. That'd be a start. All right, folks, it's been fun. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there ain't no such thing as a free lunch. Tanstaffel. We'll get more into that next week. All right, folks, have fun. Enjoy life. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Or live riskily, or live in the middle of the woods. I just met a guy who the other day who was making his like bi-yearly foray into civilization before retreating back to a cabin in the middle of absolutely nowhere. He was getting some supplies, I think like lighter fluid and a few other things. He was a cool guy actually, but he was like, yeah, I'm just here to get a couple supplies and been living out in the middle of the wilderness. And I'm like, that's really cool. I wish I could do that. It was neat. All right, I have yammered on. Have a good one, folks. Enjoy life to the fullest. Bye.